Morning, everybody. Welcome to this urgent leaders meeting on Monday the 30th of May 2022. So agenda-wise, have we got the agenda? Thank you. Identification of urgent items to which call-in will not apply.
There are none.
Okay, so declarations of interest, please. I don't hear any declarations of interest, thank you. Minutes of the urgent leaders meeting held on the 27th of April, which I've seen and can agree. Any comments? Okay, we'll move straight on to the urgent decision that's necessary today in respect of contract and financial procedure matter, grounds maintenance, forest for change. Carl, is it you that's going to be bringing this? Or can I ask you to address firstly the need for the urgent meeting rather than it being able to come to a normal cabinet meeting, please?
Thank you very much, Chair. So, in essence, there's a great demand on the availability of trees nationally at the minute due to the Queen's Green Canopy initiative, and also following the COVID-19 pandemic, there's a limited amount of species coming into the country as well. So it's availability of stock, and it's also the short period of time in which we've got availability on the marketplace available to us.
Thank you for that. And the cabinet member sort of responsible, unfortunately can't be with us. He's had a bereavement and can't be with us, so it falls to me as well to hear your paper today, but we have got the cabinet member for Street Pride and Place as well here, who may wish to contribute along the way. So over to you. What's this all about?
Thank you very much, Chair. So basically this report and the project builds upon the fact that Derby has within it many great green open spaces and parks. These parks and green open spaces provide lots of facilities for the residents of Derby and also its visitors. And these include things of a physical nature, so it could be relaxation, rest, or community cohesion, socialisation, those sorts of things. But also they help with the mental well-being side of things as well through green therapy. But these advantages are often not used within an urban setting for obvious reasons. And so this project, the urban pop-up forest as it's sometimes referred to, would deliver these benefits within an urban setting and help provide lots of benefits really. These benefits are often green therapy in nature. So throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, medical practitioners were starting to prescribe things like green therapy because of the mental ill health that people were suffering. We've seen an increase in the use of our city's parks, and so that demand is still there. So we hope to bring that into the city centre. We also hope to bring parts of the city centre back to life. So the main high street is used heavily, so it's going to help not just attract footfall into the city, but move it into areas of the city that aren't generally utilised as well. From a cultural point of view, we hope to engage partners and also other colleagues within the council to hold events within that space. So it's not just a forest, it's also a place to bring other events into and enhance them themselves as well. Following the event, it's going to take the forest, lift it and plant it elsewhere in the city. So the green benefits, the carbon benefits will continue along, well, they'll outlive me. So they'll be provided for decades to come. So the recommendations of the report are to approve the installation of an urban forest within the marketplace for a duration of 6 weeks. After that, it will be planted within the city. The recommendation is to approve the purchase of the trees, shrubs and accompanying items, along with the services to construct, maintain and disassemble the forest at a cost of up to £163,000. To delegate authority to the Director of Public Protection and Street Pride to manage the operational decision-making of the project, and also to approve the use of the Derby Marketplace Reserve Fund up to £50,000 additional cost to support the project. So the project itself will continue to support the council's recovery plan through things like green therapy. So I've already touched on the fact that it's going to help the residents of Derby City and also its visitors in terms of its mental well-being, but also it's going to help increase footfall to these areas and help its economic recovery as well through helping local businesses. It'll also help tackle, contribute towards the climate change action plan as well, including benefits such as carbon storage, carbon sequestration, temperature regulation, noise reduction, landscape enhancement. It'll also help build a recreational place, increase educational value if we get schools and such into that place to provide educational talks, and also help with cultural aspects as well, increase our cultural value. It also supports the Reconnection with Nature subgroup. So that subgroup is committed to several goals within its action plan, and they are, well, some of those are numbered under 3.2, but they're focused around vibrancy projects and increased green infrastructure, and also it'll go on to increase the city's canopy coverage towards the end. So some supporting information in there. So the council does have a modest tree planting budget, and that's the arboricultural section specifically within Street Pride. So it's going to help tap into additional funds to increase the tree canopy coverage, which for Derby City is less than average. The average for the country is 15%, and we're running at about 8% currently. More and more we find areas throughout the city. There's an iTree Eco survey done last year, and that's given us some good intelligence on what our tree canopy and our tree stock looks like. And there are areas within the city that are deprived of these green benefits, and they're typically urban in nature. So we're trying to get more of these benefits into urban locations. The trees themselves, they carry an amenity value, and the city has over £1 billion worth of amenity value in its tree stock. And on the last page, under item 10.1, those ecosystem benefits are broken down a little bit, but many of those ecosystem benefits can be costed out, and under 4.4 some of those are costed out. So each year, for example, the trees themselves sequester over 3,000 tonnes of carbon worth almost £3 million. So the trees that are being installed temporarily on the marketplace aren't saplings, they're on their way to maturity already. So once while they're there, we'll be able to measure the benefit that the urban forest has within the marketplace, but also when they're planted, they'll have a running start on the ecosystem benefits that they do provide. So it's not just young trees that we're planting. So throughout the build-up with this project, we have worked with many colleagues within the council to make sure that this project is viable, compliant and safe. And the reasons for urgency were explained previously is availability of the space within the marketplace and also the tree stock itself. So there are going to be, conversations have been had with many external agencies, including Down to Earth Derby, Derby Live, internal agencies as well, and also the Cathedral Quarter, to name a few, to help get events brought into the forest itself while it's there. So it's not just a forest for 6 weeks, it's a forest with things happening within it for 6 weeks. And it could be anything from poetry readings, live music, talks from schools on the sort of trees and the educational side of things, growing your own food, educating people on what you can take from trees to eat directly from its source, lots of different things like that, including local businesses around there as well. There are some events that are planned that we're working with to try and enhance them through the use of the forest as well. So under item 7.1 you can see a breakdown of the associated costs of the project, and it's £113,000 for the actual installation, maintenance and removal of the forest while it's there. That's going to be funded from the Climate Change Fund, and there's an option for up to a proposal of up to £50,000 from the Derby Marketplace reserves for things like lighting, security, cleaning, marketing, plus anything else that we might need to do to the forest to adapt it for others to come in to make use of that space as well. So this, on item 9.1, there are some ecosystem benefits just broken down, just to give you some idea of what the some of the benefits might be over time. And then under item 10.1, it gives you a list of the ecosystem benefits that would be provided by the forest in situ on the marketplace, but also when it's finally planted within the city. That concludes my report. Any questions?
Thank you very much. Can I just ask where the initial idea for this came from? I understand there have been similar projects around the country, in London and things like that, which have been a success. But where was the initiative from to bring this to Derby from?
Yeah, so there aren't too many. So Somerset House in London was where it kind of began. And then there've been a handful of locations since, albeit not too many. So we will be on the sort of bleeding edge of this initiative, if you like. But the colleague to my left, Mr. Carl Smith, this is just one project of many that he's got going on the back burner. So he's had his feelers out. He's having conversations with the industry at large to find out ways to improve the city, essentially. And this is a very bold one, which doesn't have benefits for the 6 weeks while it's there, but has generational benefits afterwards. So, Carl Smith.
Thank you. I'll come to Carl in a minute if that's okay, but I just want to draw a couple of other things out first. As I say, Somerset House, it looks a very impressive thing. And whilst we haven't got details of the layout, I'm assuming it's going to be on a similar line to that. But you talked about the fact you've consulted with other partners in the city and looking at ways of getting best value out of this. For example, the bids are up for it, and to make good use of the space on the marketplace, etc. What sort of activities do you anticipate happening during the 6 weeks that it's there in terms of climate change and promoting healthy eating and things like that?
We're working with Down to Earth Derby. They're a local startup, if you like, and they're very hot on sustainability, growing your own food and educating people on what foods you can eat direct from source. We've met with them several times recently, and we'll bring them in, have a conversation with them, maybe have boxes within the tree beds themselves on growing food. We could label the trees so that people understand what a fruit tree is, whether it's safe to eat those fruits from those trees. So Down to Earth is one of those. Down to Earth are also plugged into other people as well, other organisations as well, so that they can put us in touch with those. But from an educational point of view, we can talk with the schools, get them in to do speakings about the latest GCSE that's just been come to the front, which is a new history one, I think it was, and there's a lot built into the history GCSE around the climate change and carbon offsetting and things of that nature, so we can do talks around that. I think it's important that we get that educational element in there, because it's our legacy. It's young people that are going to take this on board or not, and it's important that they do, so that we can tackle this climate emergency. I think you can sometimes struggle for the words for it, but I think it's very impactful having a forest in a city centre. I think it's going to look wonderful, and to Carl's words, it will be great for the city. And when we think about some of the things we've been bidding for recently, the City of Culture, what a great way to start our next round on that. Really putting our best foot forward, very impactful, national headlines, that sort of thing. Poetry readings right on the doorstep of the forest will be people like the Quad, so we'll be able to get them involved to bring their sort of services into the marketplace area in the forest. There are other events that are ongoing, like, I don't want to say what they are, but there are other events that are happening either side of the 6 weeks that we're trying to overlap with, so we can design that marketplace forest to accommodate them as well. But yeah, so we're talking with Derby Live to try and find out how many people are interested, really.
Okay. And fantastically, we've managed to achieve champion status in terms of the Queen's Green Canopy and things like this. How will this contribute towards that initiative?
Well, it bolsters the numbers for one. I think some thoughts afterwards were to plant the trees in urban settings afterwards, but it would be kind of nice to lift it's Carl's idea, to lift the forest as it is and plant it somewhere that it remains almost like a Jubilee forest or a Jubilee wood, and something to commemorate the fact that it's happening now, and it supports the Queen's Green Canopy initiative by getting in as many variety of species as we can, so it's a resilient forest as well, native and non-native species. But yeah, so in name probably.
Okay, so I was going to ask about the forest destiny, if you like, because this is a sort of thing that's going to benefit young generations for many years to come. But Carl, can I bring you in at this point, because I know you and your team have had many initiatives recently, not least lately the painting of Ukrainian flags and the recognition of key workers at the hospital and things like that, for which we applaud you and thank you for those efforts, because they're obviously going above and beyond what your normal roles are, and I see this as an extension of that. Just tell us how it came about and that you brought this forward as an initiative.
I saw it advertised at Somerset House, and COP26, whereas the other one has been in place in a different situation where that was put indoors as well. And chats with people, and sat down with Lee and said that this would be nice to bring this into the city of Derby, something like this, not on that sort of scale, but within reason, and that's where it came from. Just thinking about helping Derby get back on track, and also I think Derby's missing a green area for people to go and chill out at lunchtime, because of the areas that we've got that either landlocked and people don't realise that they're there, or too far away to just go and have that 10 minutes away from the bustle and everything else that's in the city. When you talk to people, they've got nowhere to go and sit. Lots of ideas about other things and that in the city, but that was mainly an idea I saw, and I thought Derby could do with it.
Okay, so we know about things like the Down to Earth projects and the North Riverside Urban Park idea, but they are going to be a little while away before they can sort of medium to long term projects. But this, you see this as a short term measure to start to bring the greening and bluing of the city forward.
Yeah, it would be a start, and it would also give us that idea of developing the marketplace when things happen in that area, for people to be able to just have 5 minutes away from everything. And it'll also show people that don't get to see these places what is about and what's outside the city limits, as a lot of people don't get to see other parkland and other areas. That's, yeah.
Okay, and by its actual proposal, it's actually achieved a goal in terms of raising the profile of decarbonisation of the city. It's created a lot of interest, mixed views on the subject, but it's raised the profile of what we can do as a city in terms of trees, and there are many other tree initiatives going off in the city. Are you able to tell us about them between you?
Yeah, we're carrying out at the present time the planting for the Queen's Jubilee, the trees across the city, gone in various parks and open spaces and highway verges where we've been able to get these in. This, I'd like to be able to take it to a park and put it into a park area after it's finished in the marketplace, and encourage school children to still carry on using it, and the friends groups of parks, because if we can keep this entertainment area, friends groups will be able to do it, use it, schools will be able to do it. We've got a lot of people, I've been speaking to a young lady today about autism and things like this, and it being calmer for those kind of people, and they'd be able to go there and utilise this area and help. And we'll try and carry on the planting as much as we can across the city. And once it's in situ, and it starts to establish as a full mature area, the values, well, in my eyes it's priceless, but to a lot of people's it's just a tree and a bit of vegetation. But we need to do this for our future grandchildren, for the climate and everything else, to help get rid of the carbon that's in the sky and everything else.
Okay. Carl, there's been a couple of concerns raised, and one in particular about how to maintain the trees. Are they going to be planted, or are they going to be in pots, or are we going to water them and maintain and make sure they are healthy after 6 weeks on the marketplace?
I've just got confirmation we'll be able to extend the 6 weeks. We should be able to go to 9 weeks overall. From June, end of June till the end of August is nearly 9 weeks. Well, just over 9 weeks. So that is a benefit as well. They will be watered on site. They'll be planted in pots and covered in tree bark to help keep them in the area that they need to be. If we was to plant them loose in that sort of ground, there's a chance of windfall, wind blowing them over. It is planted into pots, filled, and it will be watered on site.
These are established trees already. Are you confident they'll still be healthy after 9 weeks?
Yeah, what we'll do is we'll ensure that they're still healthy by keep watering them, keeping an eye on them. We'll then transfer them out of sight and then carry on watering until suitable time. We'll still be busy with everything in September time when we come out of the marketplace. And then just shortly afterwards we'll go and plant them and ensure that they have a healthy life.
Okay, so that 9 weeks is a strong, healthy growing period for the trees, yeah? And then they'll be changing, turning in the autumn as most trees do. I want to explore the idea of what we're going to do with them afterwards a little bit further. What's your thoughts on the initial thoughts on that, and has anything actually been decided?
Nothing's been decided. I'd like to develop Elveston Park. It's one of the parks that has a lot of sports areas and doesn't get a lot of other things. It's got a couple of schools close by. It's got a very active friends group. It'll also promote Elveston Park as a park that's lost. When you speak to somebody who's lived in Derby over 50 years and say, "Oh, I never knew this existed," it's not good, is it? So it'll help promote the park. It'll also give the children around there somewhere to utilise, and it'll help establish that park a bit and give it that green canopy.
And so if they can be kept together and used somewhere, and that, I mean, that could be a plenty of options for discussion around where that might be, then they'd make a combined larger difference in any one particular area, yeah?
Yeah, it'd be nice to keep it together, to keep that style and that play area and have that auditorium, that sort of area that's going to be in there, entertainment area. If it needs to be split, then we'd look at splitting it. But it'd just be nice to take it away and say this is what the city did 2022 and have some signs up saying, explaining why we did it and everything else about the climate and bringing the green urban into the city.
And the mix of trees, Carl, what sort of mix are we having? I did hear talk about maybe a Japanese garden or some Japanese type acres. Or
there will be mainly British trees. There will be some variant species in there because of the time of year and selection that we've had to look at. But the company's looking up and down the country to select these trees as we speak to get the right ones, and there'll be some good growth on them and good height. But it'll be various species.
Okay, good. Was there anything else you wanted to add? Was that the idea? Thank you. In that case, I'll open it up for any questions or thoughts. Ruth.
Thank you. First of all, I think when I read this report, I was a little confused as to why the climate change fund had been used. I always thought it was more for things that had a more of a benefit directly to actually reducing carbon emissions, such as insulating houses, things like that. And I would just want to know really what are the criteria against which bids are judged when it comes to bidding into the Climate Change Fund, and what is the actual internal process for doing this? That's my first question.
Thank you. I mean, for me, it appears to me to be a substantial way of tackling the climate change issue in many ways. We've already talked about how it's generated interest. It promotes the use of trees, and the report contains the details of the benefits of the number of trees that are there. The educational stuff, the health, well-being for people, the increased footfall in the city, the amenity value, cultural value, educational value. It seems to me to tick all of those boxes. Carl, do you want to come in?
It also, planting in the urban, in the city, with the trees and other vegetation, it does reduce the temperature, and it has been proven that planting trees, living walls and other areas have helped people decrease their costs on running costs and things like that. And also it brings the temperature down as you walk through the streets. It makes it cooler as well.
In terms of your question around the use of the fund, my view on it is that the fund was provided to enable the climate change champions and the climate change group to come together to come up with initiatives that they thought fit the bill, and to put those forward to Cabinet to decide what the money might be used for. Unfortunately, I'm a little disappointed. I have to say that after 3 years, very few of those initiatives have come forward. We talked about it, and Councillor Kerr's note refers to the potential use of that funding, and queries why we would use it for this. For me, it totally fits the bill in relation to the use of that environmental fund, and I would have hoped that before now we would have had initiatives coming forward from that group, from the climate change champions, to use that funding in a similar way. I absolutely understand the benefits of insulation, but they are standard ways, and Derby Homes are improving the quality of insulation in our houses, including increasing the benefits of better boilers and better systems and better efficiency in the houses. All that is going on. I was hoping for innovative things like this, exactly like this, to be brought forward to use that funding.
I would have thought that the prime reason for accessing the Climate Change Fund would be to look at schemes and initiatives that actually reduce the use of fossil fuels and make us less dependent on fossil fuels as one of the main criteria. I also still want to know what is the internal process for accessing those funds and what is the criteria. The problem is as well the climate champions have been awaiting the publication of the action plan, which is not still published. And I understand the climate champions have been not given the opportunity of actually being involved in that process, despite the fact they want to be.
Fossil fuels is not the only thing we need to do in terms of climate change. Well, that's debatable. If it's the main thing, it's one of the main things. But there are a number of ways in which you can go around tackling it. I thought I'd just explained the process. As far as I understand it, is for the Cabinet to consider proposals as to how the fund might be used. So the climate change champions, the climate change group, and other groups in the city are more than welcome to come up with innovative things like this to put forward for the use in that fund. So, and if you, I don't believe, I'd be very surprised if you didn't think that this initiative met the criteria, met the initiatives that we need in terms of climate change, tackling climate change.
This scheme is it doesn't reduce the amount of carbon and fossil fuels that are being used. So it doesn't actually tackle the root cause. It deals with sequestering of carbon. So it's a sort of almost after the horse has bolted. So although it's good in itself, there are obviously, as has been said, about mental health benefits, all sorts of other benefits. But just doing this as a very kind of swift thing with no public consultation, no consultation with the climate change champions or councillors as a whole, you know, if we're going to plan, I would much prefer to see actually something permanently done within the city centre. For example, smaller patches of pocket parks where people can actually go for a bit of tranquility. So, you know, this is, I don't think springing it at a cabinet member meeting is the best way of actually for the community as a whole to decide what it actually wants to do.
Councillor Skelton, no one initiative is going to cure climate change. They all make a contribution towards the effort that's needed to change things. In terms of the urgency of the matter, you heard that, I queried that at the very beginning, and the sole reason for bringing it now as an urgent leaders meeting is the need to acquire the trees in the circumstances that we're faced around climate change, around carbon, around corona and the competition there is for these type of things out there. We need to make sure we can get them, and that's the reason why it's been brought to an urgent leaders meeting. Any other comments, thoughts? Yes, Councillor Schenker. I know Councillor Peatfield thinks it's a great idea.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for quoting Councillor Peatfield as well. I think the idea and the concept of this is good. I agree with Councillor Peatfield. I agree with Colin Lee. I don't think this is good use of the climate change fund. Ruth mentioned a few points there. It's unbudgeted for, and I can't believe you're saying the climate champions haven't come up with initiatives over the last 3 years. It's your administration that should have been driving that, and to say or put the blame on the doorstep of the climate champions, I think is rather unfair. I mean, the statement you referred to has got Councillor Potter, who signed it as well. You know, one of your members who's very concerned that you're using that fund. My concern isn't.
He doesn't say that actually, but and his comment was written for him. But let's not get into the
his name's on the statement. His name's on the statement. Yeah, let's not get into that because that's fine. That's for him to take up with yourself. My concerns are that this is an attempt to try and rejuvenate the city centre, which is a good attempt. Trying to attract footfall into the city centre, that's positive as well. Justifying this on the back of being something which is going to make, you know, significant improvements to the way the council's tackling the climate challenge, I don't think does this project any justice. I think as an attraction in the city centre to help regenerate and increase footfall is where the justification lies for this project. I'm surprised with what are we in May, just about in May, You know, 2 months into the new financial year, yet another project is coming, unbudgeted project is being brought to the fore. We had the riverboat, additional cost for the riverboat project, a cabinet, again unbudgeted for so early on in a financial year. And that can't be good. There was a cabinet meeting just 10 days ago. This could have been brought there. It could have gone through proper scrutiny to be discussed at that meeting, and again not taken. But my biggest concern, again, and I go on about this and I'll go on about it again, is the way we run governance, and the way we govern these important decisions. It's £163,000 of money, like I said, not budgeted for, not in the medium-term financial plan that was approved by this council earlier this year. And we just come along here, and you made a good attempt in teasing out information that you wanted officers to say, and they answered your questions excellently. But again, I think your hands are tied. I'll ask a simple question. Has the purchase order for these trees, and has this council committed to this project already? Or is this something that's coming in after this? Because I believe we're committed to this project already.
Let's address some of those things, shall we?
Sure.
Lee's shaking his head. Do you want to just confirm the purchasing order position?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yeah, no purchase order has been raised to date.
So was this report or this initiative at a point where it could have been brought 10 days or so ago to the last cabinet meeting?
No, Chair.
Wasn't ready?
No.
Okay. Was it something that you've been thinking about prior to this financial year?
There have been several initiatives before this financial year. The difficulty was speaking to as many people as we needed to speak to ensure this was a viable and worthwhile and cost-effective project, and that takes time. And it's only up until recently that we've spoken with everybody that we needed to.
So, Councillor Shanker, there's your answer in terms of governance and why it is where it is, and it's come now in this fact, because it's an in-year initiative. And when you talk about it being unbudgeted for, it's perfectly budgeted for, because we feel it's appropriate for it to be dealt with from the funds of the climate change £3 million that's not been spent. We think it's an innovative idea. We think the money's there to be used, and that's what I think we should intend to do. Subject to any other contributions?
Wasn't working then, Chair. Thank you very much. Has it been taken into consideration, if we're going to bring extra people into the city to look at the forest, of all the fossil fuel that we burnt by those people coming in for that? Because I'm a bit concerned that we're doing this all for climate change and actually make the problem worse by getting all these people to come in here. Has that been taken into consideration?
The argument doesn't really stack up, does it, in terms of there's an obvious need to increase the footfall within the city. I'm sure people who are interested in looking at trees are either going to cycle in or come on the bus or whatever. We can't not do initiatives in case it makes people drive into town, I'm afraid. Did you want to come in, Judge? So clearly that has been considered, Councillor Ingle. Thank you. Right. In that case, unless there's any other contributions, it falls to me to decide whether we can agree the recommendations 2.1 to 2.4, and I'm absolutely sure we can, and I'm absolutely sure every effort will be made to make this a success, and I thank you and your team, Carl, for bringing this forward, and look forward to seeing how it goes. Thank you very much.